So away we go. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Coptic Center Sunday evening experience as we gather virtually in light and love, universal truth, and our ongoing quest towards self-mastery tonight as we approach the middle of July and still at our home fronts. And thank you for joining us tonight. And it's great to have Darcy with us. It's been about 8 to 10 years. I was sending her email, and we're bantering back and forth about that since she's presented at the center at the time. And looking forward to what she has to share with us tonight. Hopefully it's in the theme of some music as well, or at least tones of music. And we'll find out more about that in a little bit. And right, very good. So glad to have you with us tonight, Darcy. And we welcome Darcy Davis-Beghein. Back in 2008, I had the blessings of being ordained right next to her as a Coptic minister. And she has last shared her message here at the Coptic Center about 8 years ago, as I was saying at the top of the gathering tonight. Darcy Davis-Beghein is a Coptic minister, teacher, musician, and a life coach, combining her study of world philosophies, Coptic training, and practices of body, mind, and spirit connection. Darcy teaches the invisible side of success in alignment with the universal laws. For over 30 years, she has worked as a teacher, speaker, workshop leader, and singer. She currently teaches music, choir, and musical theater to 3rd through 8th graders in Arizona. Whether teaching or coaching, she empowers others to manifest their dreams through transformative thinking and decisive action. Darcy's experiential, fun teaching style invites people to ignite their passion, their power, and purposeful living. And we're so grateful to have Darcy with us tonight. As she shares her wonderful message, The Face of Grace.
Thank you, Michael. And of course, thank you, John, for inviting me to be with you tonight. And greetings from the hot Southwest. It is wonderful to be with you tonight. And it has been many years since I've spoken at the Coptic Center. But now through this virtual format, we're all just that internet click away. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear, the hour I first believed. Many years ago, at a comparative religious conference, experts from around the world gathered and debated which belief, if any, was unique to the Christian faith. C.S. Lewis entered the room and was brought up to speed into the discussion. He was told about the topic that they were discussing, and they were trying to decide which belief was exclusively Christian. Lewis said, "Oh, that's easy. It's grace." Grace comes from the Greek New Testament word charis, which means the unmerited favor of God, a term that denotes salvation. Grace is a gift from God, a kindness, a sanctification delivered through divine favor. There's nothing that we have done or could ever do to earn grace. Grace is the unconditional love in action that is bestowed upon us by God. Grace transcends logic, and it has been said that grace is radical equality. It touches us all through our lives, coming to us beyond any measure of deserving. Grace gives to the peasant and king, the righteous and unrighteous, the law-abiding and the law-breaking, recognizing no social status or barriers. It has a quality that supersedes the worldly ideas of karma, an eye for an eye, and the laws imposed by humanity. We all enjoy and receive grace beyond any possible deserving. It is through that unexpected generosity of spirit, often received when we least expect it or are feeling worthy of its gift, that we have then the opportunity to be raised in love and consciousness. And from his fullness, we all received grace upon grace. For the law was given through Moses. Grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. and that is from the Bible, John 1, verses 16 and 17. The name and topic of this lesson came to me as I was journaling the morning I received John's call and invitation to speak. I jotted the title down at the top of the page, not really knowing where the idea had come from or what I was supposed to do with it, but I trusted that there was some reason I was supposed to remember it. I then spoke to John later that day, and it was apparent to me that I had received some guidance about my speaking topic before I consciously knew I'd later be using this for a lesson. I often say that the little things are the big things. I believe this is the language of grace. It is not always through big monumental moments of pain and suffering where grace has landed and lifted us, often from the ashes of that funeral pyre to rise like the phoenix to our next level of healing. For me, grace often has come as that still small voice, or the voice that cries in the wilderness. When I pay attention, the rewards are bountiful. Back in the late 80s and 90s, I was the music coordinator at the Unity Church of Grand Rapids, then known as Unity of Practical Christianity, where I worked very closely with Linda, by the way. In the early 90s, a Unity minister named Yadra Price came to present a workshop called Grace Awakening. I was going through a pivotal time on my spiritual journey and found her message transformative and life-changing. I recently revisited my notes and materials from her work as I prepared for this lesson and began to think about how much we need more grace in our lives, especially now with what we're going through on this planet. As with any challenging time that we face, we have the opportunity to align with the highest and best versions of ourselves. I believe that God will always find a way to highlight the good in any challenge, giving us grace to step out of the darkness and into the light. I believe we are being called to live grace-filled lives, to bring grace into action, to be the bearers of grace in this wounded world. The Coptic tenets also outline this, calling us and asking us to do much of the same. If we are all one and all that God is, it makes sense to me that grace becomes the realization that this oneness is the truth of our being. It is God's desire that we too step into grace consciousness as a way of living. Just what, if we each lived from a place of grace and looked for ways to transcend that human judgment within ourselves and offer that grace not only to ourselves, but to others on a daily basis? What if we chose to live a life of grace and embody practices of gracious living? Grace is that extension of unconditional love and tenderheartedness that offers empathy and forgiveness. Living from grace consciousness offers us ways to build bridges and open doors to others who may think differently or who may have offended or hurt us in some way. Coming into cooperation with grace is the fulfillment of spiritual law and aligns us with the qualities of willingness to meet others more than halfway. Grace transcends what we may deem deserving or not deserving. It does not deal in even exchange. So I'd like to share a story with you. Last year, a woman posted this beautiful story in Guideposts. Karen Melena's mother had dementia and was suffering from the loss of her husband, Karen's dad. Her mom lived with her brother and still recognized family members, but many of the details of her life were slipping away. Her mom would forget that her husband passed and would have to come to terms with the sad news over and over again. She seemed to be in a state of perpetual sadness. Karen prayed to find ways to comfort her mother. When she kept seeing a flyer everywhere she went in town advertising Beauty and the Beast. Beauty and the Beast was going to be performed at her old high school, and she immediately thought, oh, Mom would love this. When Karen was young, her mother had loved the story and watched the movie many times, learning all the songs. Karen even caught her mother dancing around the kitchen and singing the opening number while preparing dinner one night. Maybe this show could really bring her joy, Karen thought to herself. When her mom heard about the performance, she was eager to go. On the day of the musical, Karen reminded her mom several times where they were going and what they were going to see. They arrived at the auditorium and got settled into their seats, and all seemed well until the curtain rose. The narrator began the story, and when Karen's mom saw the Beast, she called out, "Is this Cats? I want to see Cats." Karen was mortified, but she told herself, Mom will feel differently when the singing starts. When the singing began, her mother did feel differently. She began belting out those songs along with the cast, singing loudly and off-key, as though everyone there was going to see her perform. None of Karen's prompting could get her to stop. Embarrassed, Karen started to gather up her purse and their belongings, hoping that she could get her mom out of the auditorium without too much distraction. Then a voice said, "Stay." The command came with such force, Karen actually looked around to see who might have said it. It had come from within her. She started to gather her coat to stand, and she heard, "Don't move." She obeyed the voice and settled back down. She was trying her best to manage her mother throughout the rest of the show, but she stayed put. When the show ended, Karen kept her head down to avoid the possible stares of disapproval from other audience members. She tried to hurriedly rush her mother out. And when they came out to the lobby, the cast was greeting audience members, and people were taking pictures with them. Karen's mother said, "Care, can I get a picture?" Karen consented and snapped several pictures of her mother with Belle. Her mother glowed with genuine delight and joy. These pictures captured the expressions that were the answer to Karen's prayer. This was her gift from God. The next morning, Karen's mother had a stroke and passed away a couple of months later. Those commandments to stay through the end of Beauty and the Beast were God's grace, unexpected, unmerited, and Karen listened. Karen then became the face of grace to her mom, overcoming her own feelings of embarrassment and discomfort to provide a comforting joy to her mother. Karen's mom was given an evening of happiness, and Karen now has a beautiful, heartfelt memory for a lifetime. This is the gift of grace. I have to tell you that grace was there when I was choosing this story. This is the first story that grabbed my attention. Guideposts had always been in my family home growing up and was always a ready reference for us to read. This story was a nod to me as well, because I once had an elderly mother who sat in the audience and watched me when I performed in Beauty and the Beast shortly before she died. And when I looked at the date that Karen had posted her story, It was the same day that my mother passed away, July 25th. Stories like these beautifully illustrate living through grace. So, how do we shift and awaken to the grace-filled life? I have found for myself that a simple attitude of being open and willing has brought me some of my most profound spiritual growth spurts. By saying, I am open and willing, I allow God, Spirit, higher power, whatever you call the divine, to work through me. It then becomes an attitude of surrender to step aside and let the powers that be reveal what needs to be revealed, putting into motion the wheels of change for the better. This is the energy I then take into meditation, into my journaling, and into everyday problem solving. The divine cannot resist the invitation to my open willingness. And through this act of surrender, I create a consciousness of allowance. I invoke the beginner's mind and facilitate the flow of communication with the Creator. Having been invited in, God pulls my gaze inward. I look first within, striving to live from the inside out. From this perspective, I recognize the consciousness of truth and harmonize the conscious mind with the superconscious mind. When I recognize that of myself, I can do nothing. I put my faith in the Christ within that does the work. The more I identify with divine ideas and connect to oneness, the more I affirm the consciousness of oneness and bring it into the world. The more I resonate with the vibration of grace, the more I am open to receive. When I pray to open my eyes that I may see, I live with the expectations of good in my life. I look for clues of grace and the activity of God in my life. I listen for inspiration as to how I can be the procurer of grace to others. I look for ways to connect to others, to serve, and to love. I ask for guidance in how I might be more tolerant and mindful towards others who do not share my viewpoints. I count my blessings, and I look for ways to be a blessing to others. When grace appears, I acknowledge it, and I give thanks. The more I see my life and circumstances through the eyes of grace, the more I am aware of its presence. We know where energy goes, energy flows. Where attention goes, energy flows. We all have that experience at one time or another where we have that heightened sense of awareness of something just by holding its frequency in our minds and hearts. A common example is purchasing a new car, whether it's a new car or new to you. Perhaps you do some research, you do some test driving, you narrow down the search, make a purchase. Before the purchase, that car may have been seen occasionally or may have been noticed by you upon occasion. But once it's yours, it seems like everyone is driving that same car down the road. You see, that car is everywhere because you now resonate with that car's vibration. I believe that receiving grace calls us to not only benefit from grace, but to be the benefactors of grace. Who is the face of grace? We all are the faces of grace. Each and every one of us, now more than ever, is being called to be the face of grace in our world, to be the rising tide that lifts all boats, to be the beacon of light that shines in the darkness, to be the extended hand of generosity, to be the builder of bridges and the model for peace, to be the face of grace. So, invite grace into your life through your open willingness. Allow that grace to live through you from the inside out. Affirm your oneness with grace. Resonate with grace. Vibrate with grace. Acknowledge grace when you see it. And give thanks for its presence in your life. Be the face of grace. I'm not going to tell you that it will be easy, but I will tell you that it will be worth it. 'Tis grace that brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home. Namaste, and thank you.